Hello everyone, my name's Brian Davis and welcome to Let's Talk Tech Live. We're very fortunate today. My guest is Dominic Robinson, or Dom Robinson as he prefers to be called, a national instructor and the Technical Diving Group Chief Examiner for the British Sub Aqua Club, the largest non-profit diving club in the world. It's also the governing body for our sport in the United Kingdom. The quality of training provided by BSAC, or the BSAC as I still call it, branches and approved dive schools, is quite possibly the best in the world. Rescue and night jobs are taught as part of entry-level recreational certifications and are just an example of where the BSAC is different. The BSAC also teaches decompression diving early on in its recreational syllabuses. It was only natural that the club developed technical grade qualifications for its members. Dominic is here with me today to give everyone watching an insight into how the BSAC developed its technical diving programs and what is coming in the future. In his role as Chief Examiner of the BSAC Technical Group, he sits on the National Diving Committee. Like all members of the committee, his role is voluntary and unpaid. And as you will see, we are extremely lucky to have people of Dominic's caliber and experience serving the club. So with no further ado, I'll bring Dominic into the conversation. Hi, Dominic.
Hello, Brian. Thanks.
How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm well indeed. Thank you.
Right. Welcome to the show. Would you mind just giving the viewers a brief biography of when you started diving and how you progressed to your current role within the club today?
Yeah, of course. So I have been diving for about 30 years, just under. Well, actually, no, a bit longer than that. So when I was a kid, I lived in Papua New Guinea, just north of Australia there, and aged about probably 11 or 12. My father put a diving cylinder on me and took me to see the coral reefs there. So that would have been in the early 1980s. And then about 10 years after that, when I joined the military, I had the opportunity to learn to recreationally dive within the military, and learnt through them, and then sort of slowly, actually fairly rapidly progressed through the different diver grades that I know we're going to talk about in a bit, to the point where I could actually take away groups of soldiers myself within the military, go away on diving expeditions, and the UK military views diving, amongst other activities, as a great way for developing people. They call it adventurous training. And so as part of the adventurous training scheme, I progressed my diving qualifications up till I became an instructor. Then I became a diving supervisor. And I was very fortunate when I left the military that I got a job teaching people as part of the adventurous training system to do recreational diving. And as part of that, I became very interested in technical diving as well. Learned to use rebreathers, and then obviously learned to do trimix rebreathers. Realised that this was an absolute passion of mine. I really enjoyed it, and I sort of gained more qualifications, became an instructor with rebreathers, trimix instructor, and about 12 months ago, in fact, no, about 2 years ago, I was asked to become part of the technical group within the British Sub Aqua Club. And then about 12 months ago, the current national diving officer asked me if I'd take over as the chief examiner, which obviously I eventually said yes, and here I am today. So I guess that's my route, really.
Oh, that's excellent. So the military played a big part. Well, before we move on to that, why was your father in Papua New Guinea?
So my mum and dad always wanted to live overseas, and when they were in their 30s, they looked at a number of different kind of jobs. And my dad at the time was teaching in a school in Leeds, and saw this opportunity to go and teach at the university in a city called Ley in Papua New Guinea. Applied for the job, got it, and so moved the family out there for 4 years. And obviously, as a kid, it was a great experience, and diving was just one of the things that we did out there. But obviously, fantastic part of my life, and something I look back to with a lot of fondness.
apparently the diving is excellent out of TNG.
Yeah, and obviously I didn't have anything to compare it to at that time, and remembering things from that long ago is always quite difficult. But yes, I remember we did lots of snorkeling as well, as you can imagine, and it was absolutely fantastic during the that period of time. There was loads of stuff left over from the war, as well as obviously the all the coral reefs and the fish life and the beautiful warm water and everything. So absolutely stunning, and it is one of those places I'd love to go back to actually, and just kind of see how it stands up to the memories I've got of it.
I think they've got some good deep wrecks as well.
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure. It gets very, very quickly off the coast. I mean, my dad always tells me about a dive that he did with my mum. There was a ship that was anchored up in one of the bays there that was basically being falling out over money. The guy who was the skipper had anchored the ship in the middle of the bay and then thrown vital parts of the engine over the side, so that the people who owned it couldn't get it started again. So it had been anchored there probably for about 10 years, I guess, when we were there. And my mum and it was a common thing. People would dive underneath it because the fish swam around underneath it and all those kind of things. But my mum and dad decided to follow the anchor chain down. I think they only had one depth gauge between them. And my dad said they got to 200 feet on the depth gauge, and it didn't read any deeper. And they kept on going for a bit until they realised that they'd had enough, and then they turned around and they came back up again. So, I reckon they would have done 65 metre dive on a single cylinder, no octopus, no spare gas of any sort, obviously breathing air, etc. So
what was wrong with that? Original BSAC type diving.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's, when we talk about deep air, obviously a real forbidden topic these days. But I think we have to remember a lot of people did do it and did do it without too many problems back in the day. Not that any organisation would recommend it now.
No, we're all very risk averse. We've got my brother-in-law, who's ex-military, Roy Poulton, is saying good evening.
Hello, Roy.
So the military obviously played a big part in your recreational diving career, and I guess your current job, which is OIC of the Joint Services Sub Aqua Centre, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Would you consider that the ultimate dream job? I mean, I looked at your CV on LinkedIn. You are a very, very highly qualified professional in other fields. We're not going to go into that now. But did you just, when you got the opportunity to apply for that role and you got accepted, was it like, yes?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it that it was, is a dream job in many respects. I mean, like any job, of course, there's negative sides to it, but there's some absolutely fantastic positives to it. My wife says that I don't have a job. She says I have a hobby for which I get paid, which I think she means as an insult, but which I thoroughly view as a compliment.
Yeah, so, I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, it's a nice position to be in. There's 9 of us work there. Many of us, like myself, are ex-military. And, we teach people to do something that almost all of them are very, very keen to be doing. So it gives us a really nice working environment. And obviously we have the ability to go and do some fantastic diving, which is what we have here in Plymouth.
Yeah. And I was talking to Andy Clark the other day, Andy, the Northern Diver,
yes,
who you did a podcast with. And we were talking about, it's one of the few environments in the military where a junior non-commissioned officer will be telling a full colonel what to do on first name terms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the reasons the military really value it, because it does have that ability to kind of flatten the rank structure and to build different relationships to the ones that you might have in other settings. And certainly I look back on the adventures training that I did while I was serving, and the kind of the experiences I had, the people I got to know, all those kind of things, I would say played a really important part in my development. And so I think it is an activity that has real value, and I think that's felt within the military as well. And certainly one of the reasons, I'd say the reason they put quite a lot of resources into doing it.
Right. And before we move on, I think you've got a picture of you as a young diver, haven't you?
Yeah, if you
We've got to show. This has got to go on YouTube for the rest of your life. Do you want to put it up?
Well, yeah, go for it. Can you?
There we go.
There we go. Oh, that's a picture of my rebreather. But yeah, that's a picture of me, aged 20 or 21 years old, a junior officer, and
with hair.
Yeah, with hair, and that's me leading a group of people on a diving expedition. Those of you who recognise landscape will recognise that as the Isle of Skye in the background, and that's us diving in a place called Kyle of Lochaush up in Scotland. So I aged 20 or 21 years old, I was taking a team of I guess probably 12 divers with a couple of boats, operating independently with we had our own gas. We were planning our own dives and all those kind of things. And obviously that's a really good experience for any young person to have, I would say. And
yeah, that's real leadership training, isn't it? In action.
I think so, yeah. And I got a lot out of that. As you can see, what I did get out of it as well was quite a lot of hair loss, because clearly it all fell out overnight.
Right. We'll just take that off. Everyone's seen you nice and young. Before we move on, what are the Joint Services Sub Aqua Club primarily follows the British Sub Aqua Club teaching status, but what are the main differences in diving within the Joint Services and the regular BSAC branch?
I guess there's probably two main differences. The first one is the fact that we are diving at work, so we are bound by the kind of same sort of, the fact that there are obviously specific rules and regulations that apply to diving at work in terms of medicals and risks, and some of the legal requirements and all those kind of things. So we have to take probably a much more rigorous approach to those things than you might do in a pure club environment. And the second thing is we're doing it as part of the military, and the military have got their own set of rules and regulations about diving that are particularly stringent. So those are things that we have to apply as well. So we have the UK law as it applies to recreational diving done commercially, and then we have military regulations that apply to diving as well. So we have to put all those things onto our work, which to be honest, probably makes it a bit less fun than it would be. It would be
a lot of paperwork, a lot of things. Yeah, and it is part of the Ministry of Defence, isn't it? It's the civil service as well.
Yeah, so I'm a civil servant working for the Ministry of Defence. So this is a job, and with all that is associated with that. So those are probably the major differences, I would say.
Now let's get into the subject and talk tech, as I say. Many would consider that the club, the BSAC or BSAC, had always been involved in technical diving. Certainly when I was young in the 80s learning, we would do deep dives. We were allowed to do deep dives to 50 meters on air. I remember on the RMPL tables, 8 minutes at 50 meters.
Yeah.
When did the club actually formally establish a technical diving group and appoint a chief examiner? And what was the reason behind that? Instead of, I'm going to go on a bit here because I've got to explain to people the difference between a real advanced diver in the BSAC and an advanced open water diver. So why did they not decide, let's just, advanced diver grade is there, let's just get the technical grade qualifications through SDCs? Now, before Dominic answers that, I just want to make clear, the advanced diver in the BSAC is a very senior diver grade. It's one below first class diver, which not everybody goes for, but an advanced diver is like a dive master, a PADI dive master, an SSI dive master on steroids. They generally can boat handle, they generally can operate compressors, they can definitely organize dive expeditions. So it is high. The BSAC's kind of equivalent grade to dive master is called dive leader. So I just wanted to get that clear, because there will be people watching, because I had a debate the other day. People who do the 9 dives in PADI and become an advanced open water diver, when you talk to them, they say, "Oh, I'm an advanced diver," and I have to correct them. So Dom, can you answer that question that I just raised? But I just wanted to get the advanced diver situation out of the way.
Yeah. Okay. So history of BSAC and BSAC technical, I would say you've probably got it in a nutshell there, which is that, BSAC has always, members of BSAC have always been interested in deeper diving, and have exploited technologies as they emerged. So some of the earliest use of trimix in this country was done by BSAC members. Some of the earliest use of rebreathers in this country was done by BSAC members. Lots of these guys went over to the States and trained with the kind of, the big names over there that people have always, heard of. And I think they brought those skills back. And it probably took the BSAC, like a lot of organisations, quite a while to kind of realise that this was a separate, but linked discipline. So that didn't, nicely fit in with the existing grade structure. So moving it into almost a separate stream, I think is what is currently is what is currently the case. So moved into a separate stream and formalised that with the creation of a technical group, which I think was probably done about 16 years ago, maybe 15 or 16 years ago, round about the time I think that we produced some of our first formal rebreather courses. So that was round about the time scale it happened, I think. Now, what I've got that might be useful, actually, Brian, is just a kind of a bit of a summary of what the BSAC grades are. If you put my screen back up, I'll show you that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's actually a picture of me at work. So
is that the Eddystone?
That is the Eddystone Lighthouse. Lots of people recognise it. So yeah, no, that's a hard-working me there.
I can see. You're really hating it, aren't you?
Yeah. I think that one is in there just as a kind of picture of what the conditions can be like in the UK. That's 65 metres deep. It's a shipwreck very close to the Eddystone Lighthouse, actually, where that one is. That one was taken, and that's myself.
And that's your passion, isn't it? Deep wrecks.
Yeah, that's my passion, deep wrecks. So that's me on the left there. It's a bit about BSAC technical, right? A bit about BSAC diver progression to start with. So the first qualification we have is ocean diver, which is, you could say, is similar to most of the other foundation level qualifications. If you were to look at PADI, it'd be a PADI open water / advanced open water diver. They're qualified to dive with another person holding the same grade, which might be a difference with some of those grades that I've talked about. You don't need a dive master in the water with an ocean diver. 2 of them are qualified to dive together. If they've done it already, they can go to 20 meters maximum, but they're not permitted to do any deco diving. So that's probably a way that would differentiate us from many other organisations. The fact that you can dive with another person holding the same qualification without the need for anybody else in the water. Next grade up is sports diver, which is a really important grade for us. Probably the equivalent of, well, we would say it's the equivalent of a PADI rescue diver and other similar grades. Once again, qualified to dive with another. If you've done the depth progression, you can do a 35-meter dive, and you can do mandatory deco, holding that qualification as well. Yeah. You're also trained to do a variety of rescues, and is therefore our kind of is as I say, really important grade for us, and is also the entry level if you want to go down a technical route as well.
Yeah, and yeah, the BSAC do incorporate rescue after ocean diver all the way along. So there is no need for a separate rescue diver qualification. And yeah, then there are also skill development courses you can add on to your sports diver qualification.
Absolutely right. Yeah, ocean diver contains some rescue skills as well. So yeah. A bit in there as well. But yeah, sports diver contains the full package. A dive leader. Now this is people would say is the equivalent of dive master, but actually what it also does is there's quite a lot of emphasis in there on the planning and the management of dives. This is a club-based environment, remember. So the divers are the people who are organising and managing the dives. You're not doing it through a shop or a commercial skipper or anything like that. So these people need to be able to, understand what the tides are. They need to be able to use boats. They need to be able to find and locate wrecks, or understand the weather. All those kind of skills come in at dive leader. Plus also mooring water stuff as well that helps them get, as you can see there, down to 50 meters. And once again, none of this isn't a technical qualification. This is somebody going down a standard diver qualification within the BSAC. Next grade is a step up from dive leader, and the idea is this person can plan and manage expeditions. So if your club wants to go away for a weekend or a week, then the idea is the advanced diver has got the skills and the knowledge to do that, and has been trained to do it and demonstrated that they can do it. And the last one there is the first class diver, who you've mentioned already, which is the kind of the very top end of our grade structure, and they're qualified to really plan and manage projects. And if you think about something like, I don't know, the Mary Rose, for instance, obviously a world famous wreck, lifted in the late 70s or early 80s. The initial stages of the work on the Mary Rose were planned and managed by BSAC members, and that is a kind of, if you want a gold standard for a first class diver project, that is probably it.
Can we just go back to the ocean diver? How many dives is there for someone who does the ocean diver?
So the course consists of 5 confined water / shallow water dives, and then 4 open water dives. Although it can take more if you don't achieve, if the standards aren't achieved on those dives.
Okay, all right. So that is similar to an open water course, except that it has some rescue skills in there as well.
Yeah.
But at a club level, ocean divers do tend to come out quite experienced and quite well trained, because there's time taken over that training, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not done in a commercial environment, there's no pressure, commercial pressure to do it in X days or Y days. So absolutely, and it's in the interest of the club to have somebody who's got the qualification, who's competent. So therefore, instructors can take the time with people to make sure they're where they need to be.
So that's the kind of the recreational route. So then, where do the technical grades come into here?
Right. Okay. So moving on to technical grades. So here we go. Technical. As I said, the entry level for ours is sports diver. And then you also need to have done our accelerated decompression course as well, which is very similar to the ones that other organisations do. It's a couple of dives, some oxygen theory, and then qualifies people to dive with up to 100% mixes to do decompression. At 6 meters or depending what mix you've got, basically. So you need to have done you need to have got those 2 things before you can enter the technical route. And then, like almost all organisations, we have 2 different routes. We've got an open circuit one, trimix, 50, 60, 80 meter qualifications there, as you'd expect. And closed circuit, we're in the process of rebranding our courses and also rewriting them to line up with the new international standard. But when that's done, which for the first 2 shouldn't be that long, we'll end up with a mod 1 rebreather course, unit specific, that will give you either a 40 or a 45 meter qualification. Mod 2 will give you a 60 meter trimix one, and then mod 3 we haven't 100% decided yet, but it'll be somewhere between 80 or 100 meters, or it might be 100 meters, but you need to do depth progression or something like that. But it will be the top end qualification to line up with other people's, and also particularly important for us to line up with the ISO.
Okay, and now for a regular branch member, say a member in your branch, Plymouth Sound, which is a large, very active branch, and they start as ocean diver, and they want to go all the way up to advanced mixed gas or a rebreather diver. Typically, how long would that take if they were committed to it?
I mean, that's a kind of piece of string question, I would say there, Brian. I mean, you're talking several years, I would imagine.
Right.
And it really depends on things like the availability of instructors, but also the individual's willingness to buy kit and get in the water at every available opportunity as well. Like any any agency, you need to be demonstrate competence, and you need at each level before you move on to the next level.
Yeah.
So and particularly in a club environment where people tend to know each other very well, if a person isn't at that level, then they won't won't help them to progress. They'll make sure they're ready at that level before they move on to the next one. And once again,
so there's a good support structure. There's good mentoring and support at the branch level.
Yeah, I would say so. Certainly that's the way I feel about my own branch and what I've seen from other branches as well. As you say, I mean, not every branch is. We're lucky in our branch that we've got quite a lot of rebreather divers. We've got quite a lot of instructors. Not every branch would be in that position, but the BSAC also operates as regions. So southwest of the UK, for instance, will be a region, and there'll be a regional coach. And one of the roles of that coach is to bring other people, is to ensure that there's opportunities for people in one branch who don't have a particular set of instructors to get it from another branch. So you kind of work together in that way. So it's really effective, actually.
All right. Well, we've just had someone. Oh, come on, what? Wet Souls, that they're active YouTube vloggers. They're just having a break from the Maldives. They're going back in January. Good evening, Wet Souls. Right, let's move on to rebreathers. What is the BSA position on rebreathers other than the AP Inspiration and the Poseidon 7? Because when you look online, that's what the club seems to be training with. Non-BSA rebreather divers, say using a JJ or a Proteus, are they able to use those rebreathers and join the BSAC, a branch?
Yeah, absolutely. We, like all agencies, our initial rebreather courses are unit specific. So, and you're right, those are the Inspiration and the Poseidon are the two that we offer unit specific courses for at the moment. But if somebody turns up with a qualification from another agency that allows them to dive a particular unit, then within reason we will transfer that qualification. We will consider that qualification good enough to dive with us. So, for instance, in my own branch, as well as most of us dive on Inspirations, but we've got there's a guy with an Evo, or a couple of guys I think with Evos. There's a couple of JJs. There is a new guy who's just got one of the Hollis. A guy who's just got one of the new Hollis Prisms. So it's entirely it's entirely normal for that to happen, basically.
So what you're saying, it's very easy for a rebreather diver to join a branch. Then
yeah,
you're not going to say no. You've got to get an AP which is really good. Yeah. We've just got someone from Guernsey. Come on, Michael Page.
Hello, Michael.
Do you know him?
No, I don't.
All right. Anyway, thanks for coming on, Michael. Nice. Wet Souls have put something up there. Okay, right. So I know the club is working on some more rebreathers. Which rebreathers is the club currently working on developing technical grade qualifications for? And how does a rebreather manufacturer have the BSAC develop a course for their unit?
Okay, so we are like all agencies, we would like to deliver more unit specific qualifications. So at the moment we have got quite a long way down the line. We've got a Liberty course, obviously incredible unit, the Liberty, loads of modern technology in it and everything. So that should be out in the not too distant future. We've also further behind, we've got potential for a Prism course. We've got potential for a JJ course, although that kind of depends on the manufacturer to a certain extent. And there's other people, who are interested in developing courses for other units as well. But because
so how does the manufacturer say? I mean, I've had Dave Street from Proteus. dive systems on the show. He was on the last Let's Talk Tech. Now, how would he approach the BSAC or BSAC to say, here's my unit, how do I get it approved or a course developed for it? Does it have to be pushed by the members, or can rebreather manufacturers just request one?
Yeah, I mean, it's the bottom line is you need to have a discussion with them. Basically, we need to have a discussion, really, and the discussion would be, along the lines of, what is the demand for it? Have we got anybody who's qualified to use it? Have we got anybody who's qualified to instruct it? Have we got somebody who's qualified to instruct it who is willing to write a course for it? So it's quite a long process, and it requires quite a lot of work to do it. But yeah, I mean, we're always open to manufacturers of new units coming to us, or existing units, and saying, can we get a course for our unit? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd say, as a starter for 10, drop me a message, and we can start the discussion from there.
Right, excellent. Now we come on to a contentious subject. I mean, the way I look at it, is open circuit mixed gas diving becoming obsolete? I mean, with the current cost of helium, I mean, if you buy a rebreather, you're essentially over a few years going to have it paid for through the gas savings. And is rebreather diving not inherently safer? When you consider, like you've just said with the Liberty, the way the technology is going, and the gas management's easier and safer, or am I wrong? It just seems obvious to me that rebreather is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a shock to anybody in a technical world. There are relatively few people, I would say, doing open circuit trimix these days, and certainly anybody who's doing a lot of technical diving, I think, will have stopped doing open circuit trimix. Just the economics are just against it. I mean, I have probably this year, I will have done, I don't know, 30, maybe 35 dives below 60 meters. And if you were to look at the gas bill for that, if you say 150 or 200 pounds per dive, I've already bought my rebreather, based on that alone. So, I think the economics are pretty stark. I mean, I guess there's a few hurdles for people, isn't there? So, there is an upfront investment that has to be made. There is also, if you're an existing trimix open circuit diver, it's going to take you probably a couple of years to get back to where you were.
But you've got that investment in open circuit as well, because you've got to have the extra tanks, the extra regs. I mean, that's not cheap as well, is it?
No, absolutely. I'm talking mainly about people who already have those kind of things. So if you're
not to mention a bigger car.
Yeah. Yeah. Although rebreather is surprisingly bulky as well. So I mean, for me, I if somebody says I want to get in technical, the first thing I say to them is buy a rebreather. Because anything else is you just realize a bit down the line that you need one, and that and by then you've probably spent money on open circuit courses and open circuit equipment and all those kind of things.
And time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you may as well just say, look, bite the bullet, suck it up, buy a rebreather, spend a year or so getting comfortable on it, then go and do your mod 2 or equivalent course, and then a year on that, and then boom, do your mod 3 course, and you kind of, the world is your oyster. That would be my recommendation.
And that leads nicely on to, what are the current maximum depth limits the BSAC recommends for technical diving, and do you see them being increased?
So we have our top qualification, the advanced mixed gas, is an 80-meter qualification. As we said, we are going to make that probably a 100-meter qualification when we rewrite it. But in the interim, the BSAC is entirely happy that people who are suitably experienced and knowledgeable can dive out beyond their qualification. So all you have to do is apply to the National Diving Officer if you want the BSAC to cover you while you're doing it. So I've done that a couple of times. So for my first 100-meter dive, I wrote to the National Diving Officer explaining what I was planning on doing. He gave authority, and that was all fine. And I think there'd be no issues getting it beyond those depths as well. So in reality, BSAC members who the NDO judges are suitably qualified can dive, well beyond 100 meters as it is at the moment.
What's the maximum that the members dive to date under the BSAC, not with the permission of the NDO?
Well, I'm not 100% certain whether they must have had the NDO's permission, actually, because I think he was on it. But about 13 years ago, there was an exped to dive HMS Victoria, which lies off Lebanon. Bottom of that's 150 meters. So they did that, as I say, 13 or 14 years ago. So that's a pretty impressively deep dive, I would say. Not many agencies would authorise diving to that depth, I wouldn't have thought.
Okay, so just coming back to the club, and we did touch on it with the rebreathers, but how does a technical diver certified through one of the technical diving agencies? And it's quite funny you say that BSAC started the technical group about 16 years ago, which is kind of when a lot of the agencies, TDI and all of this, really started to come up. But what do they do? Do they just find a branch and contact them, and the branch will accept them with open arms, or is there anything else they've got to do?
So what you can do is, if you have an existing technical qualification, you can register that with the BSAC, and they will put it on your records. And it should be that is, you are able to dive within the limits of the qualification that you have. Right. So as with all BSAC branch activity, though, that's at the discretion of the branch diving officer. And some branch diving officers, who play an important role in the safety structure, they are not necessarily that content with people, doing diving that they might not know very much about themselves. So, what I would suggest is if you approach a branch and they're, not particularly happy with the diving that you want to do, then there will be another branch nearby who I'm certain you will be able to link up with, or give myself or one of the other members of the technical group a message, and we will find you like-minded divers. I mean, technical divers are used to traveling long distances to dive anyway, because that's the reality of it, isn't it? So we can put you in touch with people who will be doing the kind of diving that you want, and the qualification that you have, provided it's from a relatively reputable agency such as the ones that you've mentioned, there'll be no problems at all with us recognising those qualifications. We encourage. What we want is, we want people to go diving together and have a lot of fun. You probably see the kind of the logo is dive with us, and that's what it's about. It doesn't say dive with us, but only with our qualifications. It's just dive with us, and it's about bringing like-minded people together. And for me, that's one of the real nice bits about the club.
Yeah, and for myself, I mean, over the years, because I've worked overseas for quite some time as well, but I've been member of branches in the UK, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, affiliated with one in Hong Kong, and it's just, especially when you come to a new place, it's just a way to meet people and go diving virtually. Instantly, I remember in 1985, I was just on a business trip to Dubai. I contacted the local branch. That Friday, no, in fact, not even Friday, I think on the Wednesday, I was out diving with them.
Yeah.
So, for people who are not, who may be watching this, who are not used to like a club environment, it is definitely worth checking out your local BSAC branch. They're all over the world, and in the main, they are very, very welcoming of all divers, as Dom just explained. Okay, let's just go back more on the technical grade qualifications. And what new technical grade qualifications is the club currently developing? And are the current range of courses being reviewed and upgraded?
So I guess first thing is to look at what we're reviewing. So we are looking at lots of our existing courses. I've just talked about some of the rebreather ones there. We're also looking at some of the kind of associated courses. So our accelerated decompressions procedures course is being currently reviewed. It was done about 5 years ago, but we're doing it again. Particularly, obviously, I think that there's been new developments with things like gas density, which I think it's important that we bring into our courses. It's a really important safety point. So getting that built into the core of our materials is important. So those have been reviewed. We're also looking at our twin set course as well. We're breaking the twin set course into a twin set course and a side mount course. So that appears to be where the something that lots of people are interested in doing. We're also looking for the first time at doing a DPV course as well. So once again, they've come down in price quite a lot. You see them much more on dive sites, so people want to be able to train to be trained to use them. So we're looking at those as well. So quite a bit going on, I would say, in terms of new sort of technical courses.
Yeah, the clubs are going to have to get bigger ribs to accommodate scooter divers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned gas density then, which
Yeah.
is a relatively new concept, and I'm sure a lot of technical divers aren't au fait with that concept yet. So could you just explain a bit more about gas density and what's being changed in the training and the way we dive based on gas density?
Yeah, so we're really lucky in BSAC in that a gentleman called Gavin Anthony, who literally wrote the scientific paper on gas density with Professor Simon Mitchell. He's an advisor, so helps us a lot. And what it's become apparent is that gas density, as we all know, as you get deeper, the density of the gas gets increased, and particularly on rebreathers, obviously the workload of moving heavy gas around your loop increases work of breathing. If it increases work of breathing, it has loads of bad effects, but one of them is a potential for IPO, immersionary pulmonary edema, and therefore it makes sense to have the gas density within a level that's tolerable for the body. Trying to understand what that tolerable level is the thing that paper that Simon and Gavin wrote, and they came up with some recommendations for numbers. So what we've done is those numbers that they've given us, we have used to produce a set of gas density tables with recommended gas mixtures for certain depths, and those mixtures and the whole knowledge of gas density is now being built into all our deeper diving qualifications. So the dive leader, as an example, is a course that's currently being reviewed. Gas density will go in there. The Mod 1 and the Mod 2 courses that we're currently doing, boom, gas density is going in there. Ditto the accelerated decompression procedures. All of these things will now have gas density in, so that when divers are, we don't say you must use this gas or you can't use that gas. What we say is when you're choosing your gas, you need to be aware of this thing called gas density and the potential impacts of it, and hopefully that will help you choose an appropriate gas for the dive that you're doing.
Now, is the BSAC the first diver training organisation to actually do this?
I mean, I think lots of people have talked about gas density, and awareness of gas density has been around for a while. What I think we're the first people to do is publish hard information about it and hard recommendations. So the BSAC gas density tables, for instance, I don't think any other organisation produces anything at all like that.
This is revolutionary. I mean, I guess all the agencies are going to have to follow suit, because the evidence is there, isn't it, that it does play a big role. So well done you, as they say.
Yeah, I mean,
the BSAC.
I'll take credit for the organisation from a personal level. I haven't had that much to do with it, other than to kind of help promulgate it. But yeah, no, the people who've done that work, Gavin Anthony, who I mentioned there, a gentleman called Mike Rowley.
He was my regional coach when I lived in the Midlands, and he came out to Dubai to do first class diver and advanced instructor courses many years ago.
Yeah, so he's certainly been around this for a very long time. He organised the Victoria Exped that HMS Victoria Exped I've just talked about. But yeah, he's done a lot of work in getting this gas density information out there. And there's a webinar that you can see if you're a BSAC member on the BSAC Vimeo account. And anybody's interested in it, well worth half an hour, 40 minutes of your time.
I think it's worth joining the BSAC just to have access to some of those videos and the talks, because you can learn a lot from them, and some of the diving is exceptional. Right, we're going to go on to talking about another agency now, and it's GUE and the fundamentals course, because a lot of people are talking about this. GUE are talking about it, and they're saying it's provides advanced trim buoyancy, propulsion, including the backward kick, valve management, gas sharing, and SMB deployment. Well, that's a no-brainer. We do that from day one. But is this type of course really going to be a benefit to a BSAC technical grade diver, or does the club's training at a recreational level already prepare the diver for their technical journey? What I'm saying is, is there, when you're going from recreational to technical, is there like a skills skill development course that could be developed, or does it need to be developed?
So, I mean, I guess, one of the great things about diving is there's so many different agencies developing so many different, methods of training, so many different procedures, and everybody's looking at everybody else and, saying, oh, that's really good, or, or that doesn't necessarily work for us and everything. And GUE, obviously, in their fundies course, I've not done it, but I know people who have, who say it's really good and they've got an awful lot of benefit out of it. And you can see some of the people who've done it, and you can see them in the water, and there's no doubt about it. Some of those guys are really good. We do have a similar sort of course. So the buoyancy and trim course would be is something that we do that's similar to that. I'd say probably a difference, and it's a difference between BSAC and quite a lot of technical agencies, I would say, is that we're not quite as prescriptive. We accept that there's more than one way of doing things. So if you want to have your kit configured in this way, or you want to use this piece of equipment, or you want to use that piece of equipment, provided it is safe and your buddy knows how to use it and all those kind of things, then we're much more inclusive of it. And I think that's high. To be honest, that's probably a British way of doing things as well, I reckon. The idea that the world is big enough to have more than one way of doing things. So we have that in our buoyancy and trim course, which is a requirement for the ADP course. So
I guess the answer is it's already there. It's just like rescue; it's ingrained in the training as you progress.
Yes, I would say that.
But you've got the flexibility to configure your kit the way that's suitable for the type of diving you're doing, the people you're diving with, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yes.
Okay, another controversial subject: primary donate. Now, that used to be the BSAC's preferred method, because way back when I learned, there was no alternate air source. It was buddy breathing. So primary donate. So what's the current stance on primary donate within BSAC? And is long hose also a recommended way of sharing air?
So for quite a long time now, BSAC has had the like yourself, by the way. I remember buddy breathing. I learned to buddy breathe as well, and there's no doubt that it is a skill that you can do. But if you are doing an emergency situation, probably far from ideal. And lots of people obviously didn't manage to carry it out successfully in those kind of situations. So primary donate obviously is a bit different because you have got the second regulator. I'd say the BSAC view on it is that we prefer to have one method of alternate source that we then use all the way through the system. So if there's a method of doing alternate source that works for an ocean diver and also works for an advanced mixed gas rebreather diver, then we would prefer to have the same system.
So we're talking about everyone calls the muscle memory effect.
Yeah, absolutely, and we would call it secondary take. So you make your spare octopus or your spare stage cylinder or whatever else it is available to your buddy, and your buddy then, the person who needs it, they then take it and they then fit it and they then use it themselves, and that works all the way through the diver training system. So that's our preferred method of doing it. Having said that, though, it doesn't work in certain configurations. So it doesn't work on side mount, for instance, and also it's clearly people have got themselves trained through things like the Fundy course, or have got the kit configured for use in a different way. So once again, this idea that BSAC is inclusive and accepts that there's more than one way of skinning a cat. Not that I advocate cat skinning, by the way.
Be careful what you say nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. Even next door neighbours, which keeps on digging holes in my garden. There's more than one way of skinning a cat, and we are entirely happy for people to use primary donate, subject to having been taught how to use it, and also having they have a duty of care to their buddy. So they must have shown their buddy how it is, how the primary donate works, and also carried out some sort of dry drill with them, so that and ideally a wet drill, so that people understand how it's going to happen in a real situation. So that's our kind of policy. Our revised twin set course will have an option for it to be done as a primary donate course, and our side mount course will also have primary donate in it as well. So there will actually be formal BSAC courses that are taught with primary donate.
Yeah, and I think again, because we're fortunate with the club structure, and in general, people are diving with the same people or the same train people all the time. Once you've learnt one way, I mean, everyone keeps telling me, because the diver is always going to go for your panic diver is always going to go for your main regulator. Well, I know that through experience is not true, because if you're diving correctly and using the buddy system, and you anticipate things starting to happen, and then you can just be ready with your alternate, right? So primary donate, I'm like that with it, but it's good that the club are actually recognizing it and teaching it as a skill, as an option. So where do you see the technical diving developing over say the next 5 years? For example, what would you see the maximum depth limit that training agencies would train to, and the type of equipment?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the big development is one that we see going on at the moment, which is the kind of an international standard for rebreather training, and that kind of, I think standardization is where a process where you get all the people who have an interest in the subject, manufacturers, training agencies, you bring them together in a room and you go, right, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to train people to do? And then you get everybody's good ideas, you put them all together, and then hopefully you get a standard that everybody can work towards. And then, if you have a qualification from one agency, you absolutely know that what that person has done as the minimum level, and it's the same for everybody. So standardization, I think, is going to be a big development. I think also, we're going to see, as we have done, the march of technology. So, you think back 5 years, DPVs, obviously relatively, they've come a long way in 5 years. They're much more mainstream than they were 5 years ago. I think, a proliferation of rebreather manufacturers. So, once again, there's an awful lot more now than there was 5 years ago. I think, the things that dive computers can do now, once again, you look at 5 years ago and they've come on leaps and bounds as well. Further integration, with systems, maybe integration with stuff on the surface, I don't know. But so I guess those are the things: standards and proliferation of technology. And I think it will all get cheaper as well. So,
well, I guess, I mean, I've obviously been studying because I'm doing these tech talks and talking to people like yourself, talking to people like Dave Street. So I have to kind of have an understanding of what's out there in the market. And if I was in the market for a rebreather today, it would be hard to choose, because
absolutely. And it's a question, anybody who's a rebreather instructor gets asked a lot, what rebreather should I buy? I'm thinking of an X or a Y, and there's very few bad answers these days. What I would say is, people ask me, I say dive with what your mates are diving with, particularly if you're learning, and the reason for that is that basically
shared experience, shared knowledge, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You leave your rebreather course and you are starting a learning journey rather than finishing a learning journey, and having people around you who can just give you those little tips or remind you of things is really important.
Yeah. And then there's also the bits that you're not taught in the course, which then pop up. And if as you say, if your mates are diving the same gear, they will have already probably had that situation or problem with the unit. Okay, well, let's finish up by talking a bit about you and your passion, or should I say it's obsession, for deep wreck diving. I know from stuff I've seen online through the club, you're an active participant on deep wreck expeditions. You also love researching cups that come up of wrecks and then making a whole, taking over your life. And your branch, Plymouth Sound, is very, very active in deep wreck expeditions, isn't it? What was your favourite deep wreck to date, and what have you got planned?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I've got a few photos that might be worth putting on. By the way, Brian. So if you share the screen again,
there we go.
Yeah. So I guess talk a bit about all of those things. I guess that there is a photo of HMS Audacious. So it's the two 13.5-inch guns, HMS Audacious, a dreadnought battleship sunk off Donegal in Northwest Ireland in the First World War. And I think, for me, you look at the visibility, you look at the sort of what is actually down there. You can see the upside down turret and everything. I think for me, it shows as an example of the superb wrecks, deep wrecks that we have off the British Isles, and exceptionally fortunate that mainly actually thanks to the Germans that we've got all these things to dive. So I guess for me, in terms of what was a favourite wreck to date, it's a really difficult one to say because there's been so many really good ones. But it's why I love diving all these things, because there's so much there. Well, let's see if this works. I think probably one I would like to mention, and the photo of it was at the beginning actually, was HMS Victory, which was everyone's heard of HMS Victory. It's the Navy's flagship that's in Portsmouth, the one on which Nelson was killed at the Battle of Trafalgar. Well, actually, before that was another HMS Victory that is lying in the middle of the English Channel. I dived that about 2 or 3 months ago. It was the last wreck to be built with, or to be equipped with bronze cannon. So littering the seabed are kind of 3.5 meter long, 46 pounder bronze cannon, which are absolutely fantastic. That there is actually a photo on one of the wreck that you kind of alluded to. So that is a wreck called the Eastpoint, which is fairly standard freighter sunk in the First World War. 5,000 tons. It's the wreck on which I got the cup that you mentioned, and I was able to do a huge amount of research into it. I found the grandson of the owner, the captain, got loads of information about him and the ship, and put it all together. And there's a presentation on it on YouTube for anybody who'd like to watch it.
And I would recommend that you do. It's and it's on Dom's YouTube channel. You just put Dom Robinson in it and Eastpoint, and it should come up. I will put a link in the description after this is uploaded on YouTube to that, because it was an amazing story that Dom put together, and that's where my little joke about the teacup came in, because from that one cup he then started to research the wreck, and I think the grandson had a lot of good documentation for you, didn't he?
He did. Absolutely fantastic amount. Incredible story, and the submarine that sunk it as well. Incredible story of that as well. So the whole thing came together. It was just absolutely brilliant.
Because I think your sister helped you with the German side of it, didn't she?
Yeah, my sister speaks German, so she was able to translate some of the U-boat logs, which was brilliant. Really, really fascinating. Just what is available on that wreck. So, and you can see there that's the guy diving the Hollis Prism. That's about 70 meters deep there. That's us descending down a shot line. Gives you a feel, maybe for the kind of the viz and everything. That's a bit shallower. That's in a wreck I'm sure that you'll have dived, Brian. The James Egan Lane.
Yeah. Oh, standard.
Yeah. So a bit shallower, 20 meters. That one there. The club-based environment. So we're all there's a load of guys on a rib helping us do that dive, and that's the guy on the rib taking a photo. You can see two pairs of divers there decompressing, lazy shot on the right, and a couple of guys on blobs on the left. And obviously, in the UK, the sea conditions are like that all the time.
Oh, so, yeah.
So that's a really nice day.
Yeah, that's why the pubs in Plymouth don't make any money.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. There's another 50-meter wreck, 150 years old. That one, just gives you a feel for what there is down there. That's 2 miles off the coast near Salcombe. That's what it's like when we go diving. So you can see us all there on a sort of 6.5 meter rib. Probably maybe five divers and a cox, getting ready to go in. We found the wreck ourselves. We've located it, and we're about to go in. That's me on the far left. And there you go. That's always a nice sight when you come back up to the surface. Your mates in the rib are coming to pick you up. That's probably, I don't know, we take the rib 20 odd miles offshore, so that'll be quite a long way out to sea, doing a 70 odd meter dive there. And as you can see, starting to get a bit darker. So yeah, that's
what have you got planned coming up then?
Well, what have I got planned? So 2021, obviously, we're hoping it's going to be a bit better than 2020, which has been a pretty rubbish year, mainly. But for me, the thing that I'm particularly looking forward to doing is going back there. That is the steering. That's at the stern of the Lusitania. So you can see the telegraph up in the top, and you can see the telemotor steering wheel there as well. 90 meters down on the seabed, located off the south coast of Ireland. So I'm off back there in June next year, and I've also got another trip to Malin to dive the deep wrecks of Malin Head.
You're a big fan of Malin Head, aren't you?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Everyone talks about Scapa Flow. Malin Head is Scapa Flow on steroids. It's so much better, and I will go back there every year for as long as I dive, I suspect.
We've got just some comments come up. This is Mark Wynn from Glasgow, who now lives in Bermuda, and he's got a question for you. Has Dom dived the HMS Whirlwind?
I've not dived HMS Whirlwind. I've not even heard of it, actually, so I'd be very interested to know where it is.
Mark, can you just type in where it is? Probably somewhere up in Scotland, I guess. Right, so really, this is final question time. And I always say this to people: budget no option. What's top of your wreck diving bucket list?
I'm really lucky because I don't need a big budget to do what I'm going to. What's top of my bucket list? Top of my bucket list is to go back to Malin and to push out. So I've done the wrecks I've done lots of the wrecks in kind of the 60 to 100 meter range. So I want to go back and do the wrecks in the kind of 100 to 150 meters range. I've just seen.
Yeah, Cardigan Bay in the Irish Sea.
And interestingly enough, the Irish Sea is another place that I'm really keen to go back to as well, because I'm aware there's some fantastic diving there as well. It's a great thing about the UK. All the way around the coast and Ireland as well, all the way around the coast, there are thousands and thousands of shipwrecks, and nobody is ever going to get to dive them all. And that's brilliant, isn't it? The fact we've got so much around here, we're so lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I really used to enjoy my diving in England, in Britain, and people still don't understand that we sometimes have phenomenal viz. We have areas where there's phenomenal viz. There is so much to see, not just wrecks, of course. One of my favourite ever trips was going out to St Kilda.
Yeah, brilliant.
And the viz was Red Sea plus. And then we've got the farms with all the fields and stuff. And no, it's highly underestimated. And with those flat seas that we have all the time as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. But I do think you do have one on your bucket list, because we chatted about it. I am working on it for you. is to see if you can dive HMS Victoria.
Yeah.
We've also got a submarine here, which we're now allowed. The guys told me last week they're allowed to dive it again. That's at about 100, 102 meters as well. So I'm going to get you some information on that, because you would dive it with the same chap who would organise, if it can still be done, a dive on the Victoria in Lebanon. So I shall do my best to organise that. But I think an expedition to the submarine, and I will get more detail on it. We've got two in the Arabian Sea. One, unfortunately, is well into Iranian waters. That was called the Gilvani. And I think the one that the chaps dive on the East Coast is a German one. But I'll get information on that for you. And then we might see you out in Dubai sometime in the future.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
So I'd just like to thank everyone who's tuned in to watch this. I'm sorry for my viewers in Dubai and the Far East. You'll pick this up tomorrow because you're all in bed now. Dominic, absolute legend. Brilliant interview. Not just about what the BSAC is doing and leading the way, but also about you and your diving history and these amazing wrecks. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Yeah, when I look at this, I think, why did I leave England? So is there anything you'd like to add?
It's blowing a gale outside at the moment, and I doubt very much it's blowing a gale in Dubai.
It got a bit windy the last couple of days. In fact, last Saturday, the forecast was terrible, and I called the dive, and then I slept on my boat, and I woke up in the morning because the dog was with me, and he wasn't settled. So bloody hell, 5 o'clock up, looked outside, absolutely flat. Got onto the government app for the weather, and it had shifted south. Flat seas, and I'd already called the blooming thing, But you know what they say. We've had a good run this year. We've had a really good run on the weather here, so I can't complain. Anyway, once again, thanks very much. Roy's watched the whole thing. That's good, nice chat, good takeaways. So
lovely.
It just leaves for me to say thanks very much, and we are ending the broadcast now.
Cheers.